So last week we talked about an event called the Golden Shower. Now, we're talking about whether size matters. And I know the YouTube order is saying, only when it comes to dildos does size matter. Now, obviously, we're talking about the Destiny Warmind DLC campaign, which, for the most part, was short as fuck. Anybody that has played this knows exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. The shit was literally 5 or 6 missions long. That's it. And of those missions, the final 2 missions were basically turned into strikes once you actually completed the campaign. Now, before I begin and get into talk about the campaign, let's just get 2 things out of the way. Number 1, what you're seeing in the background is not a spoiler. This is literally the ending of Destiny 2's Warmind DLC campaign and also a strike. This was Xol, the Worm God. I'm actually playing the Heroic Strike version of this motherfucker. And yes, it is pretty challenging because of the nerfing and all the progression shit that Bungie went through with this fucking game. But essentially, he's the main bad guy that you're going to face in this DLC pack. Number 2, this is not a review of the Warmind itself. I'm not going to get into it because there's a lot of things that I haven't really got into yet, so I don't want to talk about it just yet. So for example, Escalation Protocol is part of this. You have all these collectibles now where it leads to an exotic sword. You have the Sleeper Simulant, which is also back, which is sort of like a retrieval quest as well. Obviously, the raid layer is coming out later today, but I'm not going to talk about that yet. All I want to do is just focus on this short campaign. Now, if you were to tell someone you're going to pay $20 to play a campaign that's only 5 or 6 missions long and the shit maybe will last you an hour? How many people are going to say, yep, sign me up for this motherfucker? Absolutely not. To give you an idea of how quickly we got through this shit, the first run through that I did of the campaign, I actually did with Vexed and Brown Power. It took us right around 2 hours, and about an hour of that was Brown sitting in the fucking tower going through his inventory. Not really. The first time we ran through it, obviously we needed to rank up, and we wanted to kill everything to get as much XP as possible. We're also, you know, exploring, press this button, interact with that one, what's down this hallway, what's in this cave kind of shit. You know, basically we were trying to see what's in the game as opposed to just running through the story as quickly as possible. So we did some of the content, we knocked it out, 2 hours tops, and we were all like, that's it? Like, seriously? What the fuck? Then we went on to do some of the other shit in the DLC package. Second time I went through the campaign, I believe I went through it with just Brown, and we got through it in like an hour because obviously we knew what to expect, we knew where to go, and we knew exactly where the enemies were going to come out and shit like that, so we knocked that out incredibly quick. The final character that I used was my Titan. Now, I'd already been through the campaign twice, so I knew exactly what to expect. What I did with my Titan, though, instead of going through the campaign and ranking up that way, I decided to take him, go through all the public events first, then I was ranked 30. So when I got through the campaign, I didn't need any of the XP. I didn't need to kill any enemies. So the first thing I did, fly through that motherfucker. I skipped everything unless I had to kill it. That's it. If I didn't need to kill it, I didn't worry about it, and I just skipped to the parts that I actually had to kill enemies. It took me half an hour. Half an hour to get through the campaign on my own, and the majority of that was trying to fight the final 2 strike bosses that you're going to have in the game, Nokris and Xol. Now, for the most part, people are going to look at this and say, you know, that is pretty shitty. And to that point, I agree. I really think that this could have been significantly longer. And not just because, oh, hey, I want to play a 3-hour campaign or shit like that. It's just that it really didn't explore as much as you thought it would. Now, here's the thing. They actually were able to tell a really concise story in those 5 or 6 missions. Normally, Bungie goes off on tangents. You know, they have you go to this planet, go to that planet, retrieve this fucking thing, retrieve that fucking thing. And there was a little bit of that in this particular campaign. You had to go back to Earth, go to a lost sector, collect a fucking traveler's fragment. With, oh, God. I was like, God damn it, how many times have we done shit like this? It's every fucking time we do something like this. But some of the signature things that Bungie does to extend the life of their campaign, they didn't have this time around. For example, how many DLC packs have we run a strike backwards? No, really, think about this. Almost every fucking DLC pack, what do? They put us in an area where we either run a strike from where the boss was out all the way to the open area again, or we run into the same exact strike position that we just played. They just had that in Curse of Osiris. Curse of Osiris, we had to run the Pyramidion all over again. We had to run all the way down to the bottom, collect whatever the fuck, and that was going to help Osiris. Back in House of Wolves, the very start of the campaign was running from a strike area backwards. So clearly, Bungie likes using strike areas. They like using property and geography all over again, even if we've already used that before. they basically copy and paste and recycle. They only did that one time here because the majority of the content was done on the New Space Mars. Now, when we got to the end, it actually was a pretty decent story. It was Zol, the hive worm god, whatever the fuck it is. He was trying to go after Rasputin, the AI, whatever the fuck. They basically kind of retconned Rasputin a little bit. Not gonna get into it, not gonna worry about it too much, but they kind of rewrote what Rasputin was supposed to be. And essentially the main character, Anna Bray, was supposed to be the one that talks to Rasputin, helps her through this shit. Zavala doesn't like Rasputin, Anna Bray was grown up or whatever the hell it was. So it sort of explained a little bit more about Rasputin. However, the one part that I was sort of disappointed in is that it really didn't explain Anna Bray. You know, if you go back to the Curse of Osiris DLC, they explained a little bit more about Osiris. Not a lot, but you know, Bungie's not known for their storytelling and lore, but they did explain a little bit more about Osiris, so you got a little bit more background. Here with Anna Bray, we got very little. We know that she grew up in Clovis Bray. We knew that apparently she grew up as part of this science project or whatever the hell it is, and Rasputin listens to her, but that was it. I mean, maybe there's some lore somewhere around the map where those lost fragments, those memory fragments, or whatever the fuck it is. I haven't finished all of those, but essentially some of the shit that we have just kind of didn't work for her. It explained it minimally, but you would have thought, hey, give it a little bit more expose about her. Maybe add another fucking mission. Let's run a strike backwards, motherfucker. No, but seriously, the story that was told this time around was a lot more concise than Curse of Osiris. Curse of Osiris was all over the place. At least this story had a central theme and a narrative that they followed. It was very short, but at least they did a lot better job when it came to writing this motherfucker. Now, part of the reason why this thing is so short is because Bungie's practice now of using 2 or 3 of the missions as strikes as their own. The final 2 missions of this were basically the strikes that we got in this game. Now, for an Xbox player, this is pretty fucked up. The only 2 additional strikes that you get in the game were basically campaign missions. If you beat them in the campaign, you're ready to get those strikes once you start playing the heroic strike list or whatever there it is. PlayStation obviously got the exclusive map. It's some stupid shit on Nessus or whatever the hell it is. Put it this way, it's not fucking worth it. But in any event, the 2 last missions that we have in the campaign turned into strikes. And then you have to face off against Nokris, which, by the way, he's Crota's younger brother. I don't know what happened to him, but the younger brother sucks in this one. Crota was a fucking raid boss. So basically, he was like a strike boss. And Nokris is a strike boss. And, you know, he kind of has immunity and all that other shit, but you kill him pretty quickly. Zol, the worm god. The entities who gave Oryx his power. The ultimate raid boss that we had. And the Taken King was basically the end of a DLC boss, and all you had to do was shoot the motherfucker's face off. Really wasn't that challenging. It was cool to see. It's nice that Bungie actually had a brand new asset to actually use as a boss, as opposed to just reskinning a giant fucking hive or some shit like that. But essentially, this was a pretty good idea to have a giant boss as your final character. I would have liked him as the raid boss, but essentially this is what we get when it comes to the DLC. Now, when you look at the length of the campaign, part of me is like, you know, this is real bullshit. I would have liked to have had more than a fucking hour's worth of content, but on the flip side of it, we always have to look at Destiny as a total game. Destiny's campaign has really been more of a stepping stone towards what comes after. We know that Destiny is a game where endgame content is what you want to play. It's essentially the only thing that you can do repetitively, as opposed to keep playing the story missions over and over and over again. You want to do strikes, you want to do raids, you want to do the reset each week, go into the Crucible. So essentially, less time in the campaign is not a bad thing because they want you to do all the other content. Now, when it comes to other content, obviously I'm going to do a review on that, talk about Escalation Protocol and this new progression system that really pisses me the fuck off. But essentially, all of that stuff was the main meat that Bungie wants you to get to. The campaign portion was sort of the appetizer. So they gave you 5 or 6 missions, and hey, now you're on your way. Now go rank up and do what you normally do in order to become this bullshit legend that they've been advertising for 4 fucking years. But essentially, the short campaign allows you to get to the meat and potatoes a little bit quicker. It sucks that it's that short. It certainly sucks for people that don't have any intention of playing Endgame. I don't know why you would buy Destiny if you're not intentionally playing Endgame, but essentially, that's your choice. I would have liked the longer campaign. I would have liked a little bit more expose on Anna Bray, but essentially a 1-hour campaign or half an hour if you skip through this motherfucker, that's a little short. I mean, they could have added a couple more missions, 8 to 10 missions or something like that, but this seriously felt short. It wasn't bad, it wasn't terribly written, you just would have liked to have seen more of this motherfucker. So anyways, next week, I probably won't be drinking to do a drunken review. But if I happen to have some Bacardi lying around, maybe I'll have a drunken review coming up. But this weekend, mostly, I'm going to play the new raid layer. I'm going to try to get high enough to get into Escalation Protocol to actually beat the motherfucker as opposed to just beating waves in this shit. Going to go after all those new exotics that are out. Basically, do all the shit that they added in the game that was an improvement over the DLC before and the release of the normal Destiny 2 game. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys next week when I finally tear into the full fucking DLC in this motherfucker.